Hi guys, what's up? It's Alex here, and today we're back with another race preview. This will be a race preview of the 2013 British Grand Prix. Now, the footage in the background is some go-karting with my dad, and yeah, it's quite entertaining and quite fun. So here we are. It's the Filching Manor track. By the way, if you didn't know where I go karting, that is, it's Filching Manor in East Sussex. So yeah, anyway, let's get into the preview of this year's British Grand Prix. So let's run through the championship standings for drivers and constructors at the moment going into the British Grand Prix, because I think that is an essential thing. We're nearly midway through the season, and we've got to sort of have an idea of where everybody is. So Sebastian Vettel leads on 132 points. Fernando Alonso is on 96 points in second. Kimi Raikkonen, dropping back in recent races, down to third with 88 points. Lewis Hamilton has 77 points in fourth. Webber is fifth with 69 points. Sixth is Rosberg on 57 points. Felipe Massa is seventh with 49 points. Eighth is De Resta on 34. Grosjean is on 26 in ninth, and Button is in 10th with 25 points. Suttel, Verne, Perez, Ricciardo, Hulkenberg are the other drivers to score. Only 15 out of the 22 drivers have scored points as of yet so far this season. The constructor standing shows a pretty similar story, with Red Bull at the top of the Constructors' Championship. They've been having a pretty good year, and it shows with the Constructors' points, because they are on 201 points, which is nearly 50 points ahead of Ferrari in second, who are on 145. Mercedes have 134 in third. Lotus have 114 in fourth. Force India, after a really good start to the year, have 51 points in fifth, who are ahead of McLaren in sixth with 37 points, and Toro Rosso have 20 in 7th, and Sauber only a 5 in 8th. Williams, Marussia and Caterham are yet to score, and it looks so far this year that Williams are going to struggle for points, but Caterham and Marussia are closer than ever to the main group of cars, which is really good to see. Now it's time to run through all of the teams in this year's grid and maybe have a bit of an idea of where they'll be this year at this year's British Grand Prix. Now, lots obviously has been going on in the last month with Mercedes, and I will be making a video tomorrow about what's happened to Mercedes and all of the stuff which has been going on there. So if you're into F1 news, be sure to tune in tomorrow for a Formula 1 news episode. But anyway, first off, let's talk about Red Bull, as they are leading the Constructors' Championship. They're having a really good year, and I think this might be their second strongest year ever in Formula 1. I think 2011 was by far their best year. 2012 and 2010 were also pretty good years. They still won the championship, but they just weren't that far ahead of the rest of the field. This year they seem to have about 2 or 3 tenths of a second, which is really helping them out. And Mercedes are good in qualifying, but they just can't put it together in the race. So Red Bull are up there leading the championship in both of them, constructors and drivers. I think this might be Mark Webber's last opportunity to prove himself to Red Bull. I saw an article a couple of days ago said that it's on his terms whether he leaves Formula 1 or not. We all know he's a good enough driver to be in the top 5 teams, but whether Red Bull want him or not is really the big question, because Red Bull have 2 very strong candidates of maybe replacing him at the end of this year. Verne and Ricciardo going very fast this year. They've scored 20 points between them, which is really good, really in comparison to what they were a couple of years ago. Toro Rosso, they were really, for example, 2009 really wasn't a very good year for them. 2010, 2011, none of these were really good years. And really, Toro Rosso have sort of come alive a little bit recently, and they've been doing quite well. And but yeah, Red Bull, I think this is probably a good chance for Webber to get a win. I said that a couple of weeks ago for the what Grand Prix was it? Monaco Grand Prix. I thought he might have a good chance of winning there, but sadly he didn't really have the best of luck. But Mark Webber, he's really good round here. The British Grand Prix, I think he's won 2 times, so he's got a great chance of winning around here once again. But leave in the comment section, what do you think about Mark Webber? Do you think he should stay at Red Bull, or should he move on to maybe sports cars, or maybe go to a lower team? Let me know in the comment section. I'm looking forward to reading your comments. Next up, we'll move on to Ferrari. They are second in the Constructors' Championship, as I said a minute ago. And Ferrari last year, they took the fight to Red Bull. They took a really good chance, and Fernando Alonso really wasn't the fastest driver on that day, and neither was the car. So he was, he was fast, Fernando Alonso, but he just didn't have that pure speed that Mark Webber had last year. And I sort of hope that that's the case again this year. I really want to see Mark Webber on the top of the podium before the end of this year. Maybe it might be a similar situation to 2011 if Sebastian Vettel starts to run away with the championship. He might give Mark Webber one win or whatever. I know they're not the best of friends, but you do one thing for the team. For Sebastian Vettel, obviously, he sort of took a win away from Mark Webber in Malaysia. That's obviously quite controversial. But yeah, Ferrari, I think this is a good chance for them to get back onto the top step of the podium. Obviously, they have won a couple of races in the last couple of weekends, but they haven't been that strong. So that's definitely a team to be watching out for this weekend, because I think they're going to be coming here with a big upgrade package and hoping that they'll be in the top step of the podium once again. Mercedes, now lots of issues with them over the last couple of weeks and months, and they sit third in the Constructors' Championship. I really do hope they have a better weekend than they have had in recent races. Obviously Monaco wasn't that bad, but really, to be honest, they haven't had the best of luck in general. They've had pretty good qualifying efforts, but it's just that race pace which is really killing them at the moment, and I really think they want to sort that out as soon as possible. I think that they probably have not the greatest opportunity to win here in Silverstone, but every time I've said that, they've went on to go really good in the race, so we'll see what happens here at Silverstone this year. But maybe Mercedes will be up there, but it just hasn't really been a track that Mercedes, Brawn, Honda have really gone that well at. Obviously, remember Barrichello's heroic podium back in 2008, I think, but it really hasn't been the best track for that team. And I think they might struggle this time to be maybe ahead of Force India and McLaren, especially if they've brought upgrades. Next up in the championship, Lotus. They're sort of starting to lag behind a little bit. I'm not sure whether that's due to Grosjean not really getting the points in the last couple of races, but it's hard to tell. Obviously, Grosjean has been doing quite well at the start of the season until we got to Monaco, where it took a bit of a blip, to be honest. He wasn't really that, he just wasn't that fast that weekend in Monaco, and he had a lot of crashes. And I think Lotus in general are starting to fall down the order a little bit. I'm not really too sure. It really hasn't, once again, the British Grand Prix track hasn't been the best of tracks for not for the Lotus team, sorry. They haven't really had much sort of success over there over the last couple of years, and it's sort of a home race, I suppose, because I think that's where the team is based in the UK, so I guess for a lot of the people working there it'll be a home race. But once again, as with Mercedes, I think Lotus will struggle this weekend to get some good points. Fifth in the championship, Force India. Now, I think they might go into this weekend not expecting a lot, because they realised that they probably didn't get as many points as they wanted there in Canada. But, obviously things happen in Canada which are out of their control, with penalties and all that sort of stuff, and obviously with Di Resta's qualifying mishap. But Force India will be thinking top 10 is possible, but you've got to be a bit realistic, and it might not happen if maybe some accidents in the race or whatever. But I do hope Force India are up there, as this is sort of their home track. Well, they have two home tracks, I suppose, so they're quite lucky, as they're owned by an Indian person and they're sort of based in the UK. And I expect Vijay Mallya, the owner of Force India, will be hoping they go well this weekend. I love everybody at Force India, such a great vibe in that team, and I really hope they do well this weekend. McLaren are next in the championship, like 14 or so points behind Force India, so it's going to be a bit disappointing for McLaren. They're so far back, and they're really not having the effort. I'm sure they're putting in a lot of effort, but I'm not sure they're having the results, is what I meant to say, they wanted this year. And yeah, it's kind of disappointing to see the biggest British team there on the grid down there in 6th in the championship. They're even behind Force India, who have been known for the last couple of years as sort of the team that really, in 2008, 2009, they were sort of known as the worst car on the grid, and now they're ahead of McLaren. You wouldn't have expected that back then, when 2008, when they were winning the championship, McLaren, you wouldn't have expected in a couple of years' time they'd have been behind Force India. But that sort of does bring a big thing, that maybe these teams like Marussia and Caterham, maybe in a couple of years' time they could be up here with Ferrari, Mercedes. Who knows what they do, but it's down to the money, and they just don't have that at the moment. McLaren will be looking for a risky strategy. My thinking is, that doesn't make any sense. My head is thinking that they'll have to have going for a quite risky strategy for them to get a big amount of points here this weekend. They could do it because they're both of their drivers are good round here. Obviously Jenson Button's home track, so we'll see. But hopefully McLaren will get there in the points this weekend, as they haven't had the best of luck this year. Toro Rosso, as I said, both their drivers doing very well this year. They're doing very well to fight it out with McLaren, Force India, maybe even Lotus and Mercedes at certain points of the season. And it's good to see Toro Rosso finally come of age and actually push for the points that they've always deserved. They've got a tenth of the points of Red Bull, and I bet at the start of the season they did not expect to be up there fighting with those guys. And their pace over the last couple of years hasn't been very good, as I said before, and it's good to see that they finally sort of come of age a little bit and actually starting to get some more consistent points. 20 points in the first couple of race weekends of the year, or first couple. That's a bit of an understatement. I think we've had like 6-7 rounds. I can't remember off the top of my head what round the British Grand Prix is this year. But Toro Rosso probably have a good chance at some points this weekend. I think it might be a track which actually might suit their car, which is quite good. But we'll see. Obviously, there are a lot of British base teams, this year on the grid, and they'll be wanting to beat Toro Rosso, especially Sauber and Williams. I know Sauber isn't a British base team, but they'll be certainly looking to beat Toro Rosso, because I think the only time Sauber have scored this year, we'll move on to them now, is in Malaysia with Nico Hulkenberg. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they've become quite close to points since then, but they just haven't been able to quite do it. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of a tough one for Sauber this weekend. They really haven't had the car this year. Gutierrez, I'm really surprised to him. He's doing a lot better than I actually expected. I can't remember what race weekend it was. It might have been the Spanish Grand Prix. He was very close to points. I think he might have been 11th in one of the races so far this year, and he was really close to getting some points. And I think with a couple more laps, he probably could have got points this year. And he's just been a bit unlucky in that sort of case. But Gutierrez is, fighting there with Hulkenberg and really doing a good job at trying to keep up with him. And I suppose he's doing a good job. I think points are very soon on the horizon for Gutierrez, and hopefully Hulkenberg once again to get them both in the points would be good. I don't know whether this weekend will be their weekend, but we'll definitely see. I do hope to see them in the points after so many weekends out of the points. It would be good to see them back up there. Now, Williams, we thought they'd made a big change or a big step forward in Canada, but we saw in the race pace that was just a bit of a fluke in qualifying. It was a bit of luck, and I think that's a bit sad because a lot of Williams fans here in the UK, and I suppose around the world, lots of Williams fans, and we all wanted them to get some points there that weekend after Bottas started third, and it was a bit disappointing to see him drop all the way down the order, and I think we finished like 14th, 15th, which when you start third is never nice. Even when you start third, maybe even in a not so good team, you sort of expect to get some sort of points. Like for example, a couple of years ago when Hulkenberg got pole in Brazil in 2009, I think it was, or 2010, and we expected him to get points, and I don't actually think he got points at the end of that day, or if he did, there were very little points. And when you start third on the grid, you really want to maximise the opportunity, and sadly Williams weren't able to do it that weekend, a couple of weekends ago. And I really hoped that they would be able to get points, whether it be Bottas or Maldonado. And it's just a bit of a shame so far they haven't scored any points down there with Marussia and Caterham. 10th place in the championship is Marussia. Now, they've had a much better season than Caterham. I don't think anybody will tell you differently. Marussia have had a better season than Caterham. Caterham have had a couple of races where they've been better than Marussia, but overall Marussia have been the better team. And they're on set to get 10th place in the championship, which I think will mean that Caterham won't get any prize money for next year. Bit mean, but I suppose that's the way Formula 1 works. It's not always fair. So Marussia and Caterham, now I'll do them a sort of a joint bit here. Now I think both of them are looking for this weekend to be a major changing point in their season. As with Hockenheim, we're getting to the midpoint of the season, and if their car isn't developed enough to be up there with the Williams or the Sauber, I think they might start to think about next year and start to maybe, or possibly start to think about next year's car. But when you think about it, there could be a race later this year that one of these teams has the opportunity to get some points, and if they're too busy developing next year's car, that the other teams ahead of them, they might have missed out on millions and millions of pounds there. So who knows, we'll definitely see. There might be a big pile up in one of these races, and maybe Marussia or Caterham might be able to get a point, but maybe the team that is still developing at that point of the season will get the points, because obviously the back teams are always thinking about next year's car, and when I start to think about it, they're never actually winning because they're always thinking about next year's car, never thinking about the car they're currently on. So yeah, it's kind of disappointing for those back two teams. They've been working so hard to get that team together, and it just hasn't been working out for them over the last couple of years. And yeah, I really hope for them the best, and hopefully both of them teams will be in the points very shortly. Now next up, I'm going to do something that I've never done before, but I think it might be quite a cool idea to run through my predicted top 10 for this race. Now this could be completely wrong, but we'll definitely see when the race comes about, see whether any of these people actually finish in the positions I think they will. But yeah, let's run through the order. I know it's a bit of a risky thing to say, but I think Mark Webber will win this race just like last year. I hope he wins. I think a lot of fans around the world, even if you aren't the biggest fan of Mark Webber, I think you would like him to win again, just because it would be nice to see him win, especially if this is his last year in Formula 1. And I think he'll be followed up very closely by Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel. I'm not sure which way round to put those guys, especially if the Red Bull is a lot faster than we expect it to be. But I think Alonso and Vettel will be on the podium there with Mark Webber at the end of the day. I think Rosberg will end up in 4th position. They've sorted out their tyre issues. I definitely think that that team will be up there, fighting right up there with the front guys. I don't think they might have the race pace, but I do think Rosberg will be up there, and as well along with Hamilton, I think will come home 5th. Both the Mercedes being 4th and 5th is my prediction, but that's only if the tyres hold up throughout the race. I think Suttel will be up there, and as well with De Resta. I think Suttel will end up about 6th. De Resta will probably be at 8th or 9th. I think that Suttel has a bit of anger built up in him after the last race, and I think he'll be pushing hard this weekend. I think Massa will be 7th, and I think Raikkonen will be 8th, and that's just because I think both of those drivers are not on their best part of the season so far. I think 9th will be De Resta. I think Force India are looking to have some good results this weekend. This is just a provisional result. I'm pretty sure that not all of these 10 drivers here will finish the race, let's be honest. But we'll definitely see. I also think this is a big risk saying this, but I think Maldonado will possibly get a point here this weekend, especially if the car is more developed than we have seen this year. But that's one risky order, so that'd be Webber, Alonso, Vettel, Rosberg, Hamilton, Suttel, Massa, Raikkonen, De Resta, Maldonado is what I've put as the top 10. Now, who knows what's going to happen? As I said, I'm pretty sure not all of those drivers are going to finish, but I think that's the sort of drivers we'll see in the top 10. Maybe Grosjean. He was really fast last year. I think he had a penalty early on or something. He started near the back or something, and he had a really good end to that race. He was overtaking people like crazy, but we'll definitely see. That's just a provisional result. I think we might see McLaren up there. It's really hard to choose, but yeah, that is it for this video, guys. Thank you all for watching. Maybe leave some comments about who you think is going to be the top 10 this weekend, and let me know how stupid you think I am for leaving that top 10. So anyway, thanks guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. It's been Alex. I'm out of here. Goodbye.